Single mom pays bus fare for stranger. Weeks later, he shows up at her door. Hello, viewer. Thanks for joining us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments, along with the city you're watching from. Now let's continue with the story. You need to pay or get off my bus. The driver's voice cut through the afternoon rain like a blade, sharp and final. Ethan Parker stood frozen at the front of the crowded number 43, his hand patting pockets that suddenly felt impossibly empty. Left pocket, right pocket, back pockets, jacket, nothing. His wallet. Where was his wallet? Sir, I said you need to pay. The driver's finger hovered over a button mounted beside the fare box. Security. The threat hung in the recycled air between them. Ethan felt 44 years of confidence draining from his body as 30 pairs of eyes burned into his back. I had it. His voice sounded foreign to his own ears. Small. Helpless. The words a teenager might use, not a man who had built and sold a software empire. Could I perhaps come back tomorrow and pay double? Rules are rules, buddy. Pay or get off. Someone behind him groaned with theatrical impatience, the sound cutting through the rain-muted quiet. A teenager near the back muttered something about rich people slumming it, and scattered laughter followed. How did they know? Was it his watch, his shoes, even dressed in jeans and a simple jacket, even attempting to blend into the ordinary world for once? He had somehow failed at being invisible. The rain drummed harder against the windows, each drop a tiny hammer strike of humiliation. Ethan Parker, the man who had sold his company for $2.3 billion, who had been featured in Forbes and Fortune, who had shaken hands with senators and tech titans, could not pay $2.75 to ride a city bus. Last chance. Other people have places to be. The driver's hand moved toward the button. Ethan felt panic rising in his chest, sharp and unfamiliar. When had he last felt powerless? When had anyone made him feel small? In the fifth row, Amelia Harris felt her fingers move before her mind could stop them. She had been staring at those same fingers for the past 3 blocks, counting the bills folded inside her battered brown wallet for the 3rd time that afternoon. $43 and change. $43 to last until Friday's paycheck, and Friday was still 4 days away. 4 long days. She had already done the calculations, the careful mathematics of survival. $20 for Levi's school lunch account, because her 8-year-old son deserved hot meals, even if she sometimes went without. $15 for groceries if she was very careful, if she bought the store brands and stretched every ingredient. $8 for the minimum payment on the electric bill, the one she could not ignore because darkness and cold were not options with a child. That left $0 for anything else. $0 for coffee or aspirin or the field trip Levi had mentioned so carefully that morning. Her hand reached into her purse anyway. She stood, her body moving with a will of its own, navigating past 2 people wedged into the aisle, the woman with the enormous shopping bags, the teenage boy with headphones who did not look up. Amelia made her way to the front, her heart beating faster with each step, her mind screaming that this was foolish, that she could not afford kindness, that this stranger was not her responsibility. But she could see his face now, see it clearly. He was tall, well-groomed despite the casual clothes, and his confusion seemed genuine. Not a con artist testing marks, not someone working an angle. Just lost. The kind of lost that reminded her of how her father used to look right before everything fell apart. Except this man's lostness felt different somehow, temporary. Like he had wandered into the wrong life by accident, and any moment would find his way back. Here, her voice was quiet as she extended her hand, exact change carefully counted, $2.75, the cost of compassion. The price of seeing another person's struggle and choosing, just this once, to lighten it. The driver snatched the bills and coins without comment, without gratitude, as if anonymous strangers paid for each other every day in his world. Maybe they did. Maybe Amelia was the only one who found small acts of kindness extraordinary. The driver released the brake with a pneumatic hiss. The bus lurched forward, throwing Ethan slightly off balance. He turned to thank her, his mouth already forming words, apology and gratitude tumbling together, but she had retreated like smoke, sliding back into the anonymous mass of tired workers and weary students heading home through September rain. As if the moment had never happened, as if she gave away money she desperately needed every single day. Ethan caught only a glimpse before she disappeared. Brown hair pulled into a practical ponytail, slightly frayed at the edges. Tired eyes that held remnants of something beautiful, something that might have been hope once, before life taught her to be careful with it. A library identification badge swinging from a lanyard around her neck, the photo too small to make out clearly. And then she was gone, hidden behind shoulders and backpacks and the protective anonymity that cities provide to those who cannot afford to be seen. Ethan found a seat near the back, sinking onto cracked vinyl that smelled of rain and humanity, but his mind remained standing at that front door, replaying the moment. When had someone last given him something and asked for nothing in return? When had anyone seen him struggle and simply helped, without knowing his name, his net worth, his potential value as a connection or contact? The answer was never, not since his father died 15 years ago, not since Thomas Parker's heart gave out at 58, worn down by 3 jobs and money that never stretched far enough, and the humiliation of losing their house over $8,200 they could not pay. Ethan watched the rain streak across the window, transforming Seattle's streets into watercolor blurs of gray and green. Somewhere behind him, 5 rows back, the woman who had saved him from humiliation was probably already forgetting the incident. A small act in a long day, meaningless in the grand scheme of her life, but Ethan knew it was not meaningless. He pressed his hand against the seat where she had been standing, as if he could absorb some trace of her through the worn vinyl, some evidence that the moment had been real. His heart was beating faster than it had in years, that peculiar combination of adrenaline and something else, something he had forgotten how to name. He had to find her, had to thank her properly, had to understand why this moment mattered when nothing else had mattered in so long. The bus rolled through the rain-soaked afternoon, carrying him toward his car parked 3 miles away, where his wallet sat forgotten on the passenger seat, and carrying her toward whatever life awaited beyond the steamed windows. 2 trajectories that had intersected for exactly 120 seconds. Ethan pulled out his phone, opened the camera, zoomed in on the back of her head 5 rows ahead. Too blurry. He could not even make out her face. But the library badge, he could see enough. Seattle Public Library. It was something. It was a start. He had built an empire from less information than this. Amelia's apartment smelled like overcooked pasta, and the lavender air freshener she bought in bulk from the dollar store. 4 bottles for $5. A scent that was supposed to evoke Provence, but mostly just evoked trying. The apartment was small, 640 square feet divided into 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a combination kitchen-living room where every piece of furniture had been chosen for function over beauty. But it was clean, meticulously organized, hers. Every item had its place, every surface clear of clutter, control, order, the things her childhood had never provided. "Mama, I am starving." Levi appeared in the kitchen doorway, his 8-year-old frame swimming in a shirt that was supposed to last another year, maybe 2 if she was lucky, and he grew slowly. His school backpack still strapped to narrow shoulders, dark curly hair sticking up in 17 different directions, despite her attempts to tame it that morning with water and prayer. "Wash your hands first, sweetheart." Amelia stirred the pasta, mentally calculating as the steam rose into her face. The jar of sauce she had planned to use was nearly empty, maybe a third remaining. She would need to stretch it with tomato paste and water, add extra garlic to make it taste intentional, pretend this was a recipe instead of desperation. She had become expert at turning scarcity into cuisine. Levi dragged a chair to the sink, climbing up to reach the faucet with the easy confidence of a child who had been doing this his entire life. We learned about the solar system today. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons? That is so many moons, Mama. Our teacher says some of them are bigger than Mercury. Can you imagine? A moon bigger than a whole planet. 79, Amelia echoed, forcing brightness into her voice, matching his enthusiasm even as her mind remained stuck on the wallet, the missing $2.75, the calculations that no longer added up. That is incredible, baby. Jupiter must feel very lucky. Miss Anderson says maybe we can take a field trip to the Science Center. They have a planetarium show about Jupiter and Saturn and all the planets, but it costs $20 per student. His voice carried that careful neutrality, the tone of a child who had learned not to ask for things, who had learned to present information without pressure, without expectation, 8 years old and already expert at managing adult disappointment. $20. The words hung in the steam-filled air between them, like the ghost of every other thing Amelia could not provide. That bus fare suddenly felt much heavier than $2.75. It felt like the field trip Levi would not attend. It felt like the gap between what she wanted to give and what she could afford. We will see, baby. Let me talk to Miss Anderson about the payment plan. A lie. There was no payment plan. There was only $20 she did not have, and the choice between planetarium shows and electricity. Okay, Mama? Levi climbed down from his chair, turned off the water with exaggerated care, dried his hands on the kitchen towel. It is okay if I cannot go. Marcus says his mom cannot afford it either, so we can be not going buddies. The words hit Amelia like a physical blow, sharp beneath her ribs. Her baby, her beautiful boy, already learning to make peace with not having, already finding solidarity in deprivation. She wanted to scream, to break something, to rage against an economic system that made children into not-going buddies. Instead, she smiled. Hand me those plates, and sweetheart. They ate at the small table wedged between the kitchen and living room, a folding table from Target that wobbled slightly on uneven legs. Levi chattered about school while Amelia made the appropriate sounds of interest, nodding and asking questions while her mind drifted to her wallet, to the calculations that never quite added up, to the electric bill notice she had hidden in her work bag because seeing it made her chest tight. This is really good, Mama. Levi twirled pasta on his fork with serious concentration. Is it a new recipe? Sort of. I added extra garlic. I like garlic. It makes everything taste fancy. If only garlic could make everything fancy. If only love could substitute for money in a world built on transactions. Amelia watched her son eat with the focused intensity he brought to everything. This boy who found joy in extra garlic and 79 moons and felt her heart break and mend simultaneously. After dinner, while Levi bent over his homework with fierce concentration, tongue poking out slightly as he worked through multiplication problems, Amelia allowed herself the luxury of 10 minutes on the sagging couch. Her phone buzzed against her thigh. A text from Janet at the library. Board meeting tomorrow, more budget cuts coming. I will do everything I can for you. Amelia closed her eyes and let her head fall back against the cushions that had come with the apartment, third hand and listing slightly to the left, the upholstery worn smooth by previous tenants' exhaustion. At 34 years old, she should not feel this tired, but exhaustion was the price of safety, and safety was everything. Safety was walls between Levi and the chaos that had defined her own childhood. Safety was knowing tonight where they would sleep, what they would eat, that the lights would turn on when she flipped the switch. Mama! Levi's voice pulled her back from the edge of sleep. Can you check my math? She hauled herself up, bones creaking like she was 60 instead of 34, smoothing her work clothes that still smelled faintly of library dust and old paper, and that peculiar mustiness of preserved things. Of course, honey. Show me what you have got. The problems were simple multiplication, nothing she had not seen him do before, but Levi approached each one with the same serious concentration he applied to everything in his world. So much like her, methodical and careful, so unlike his father, who had approached life like it was a casino where the odds were always in his favor until the house finally called his debts. All correct. She ruffled his hair, feeling the soft curls spring back against her palm. You are getting so smart. Smart like you. His grin showed the gap where his front tooth had been last month, knocked out during recess by an accidental elbow. The tooth fairy had left $1, which meant Amelia had eaten peanut butter sandwiches for 3 days straight, but Levi's face when he found that $1 under his pillow had been worth every repetitive meal. Later, after the bedtime routine of teeth brushing and story reading and the whispered prayers that Levi insisted on despite Amelia's complicated relationship with Faith, she stood in his doorway watching him sleep. His chest rose and fell with the perfect rhythm of childhood innocence, one arm thrown over his head, the other clutching the stuffed elephant his grandmother had given him before everything fell apart. He had no idea how close they lived to the edge, how every unexpected expense was a potential catastrophe, how his mother lay awake most nights doing calculations, moving numbers around like chess pieces, trying to find combinations that added up to safety. He would never know if Amelia had anything to say about it. He would never hide in closets while debt collectors pounded on doors. He would never watch his mother cry over bills spread across a kitchen table, red numbers multiplying like cancer. He would never hear his father make promises that turned into disasters, would never feel the ground disappear when those promises collapsed. Amelia's eyes drifted to the photograph on Levi's dresser, the only picture he had of her father, Robert Harris, young and handsome and full of dreams that would eventually crush them all. Smiling that smile that had convinced her mother to trust him, to believe in him, to sign her name on loans and investments and opportunities that were really just traps wearing hope's face. She touched her wallet through her jeans pocket, $40.25 now. She had given away money she could not afford to give to a stranger who had probably forgotten her before the bus reached the next stop, who was probably at home right now, safe and warm, not even thinking about the anonymous woman who had saved him from a moment's embarrassment. But she could not quite regret it. Not yet. Maybe that made her as foolish as her father, choosing heart over head, choosing the moment over the future. Amelia turned off the lights and prepared for another restless night, unaware that across the city, in a penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, a man she would never see again was thinking about her with an intensity that bordered on obsession, was already planning how to find her, was already setting in motion the very thing she feared most. I need you to find someone. Ethan slid a folder across the polished conference table, its surface so reflective he could see his own distorted face in the wood grain. Inside the folder, a single screenshot from the bus security footage, enhanced as much as technology allowed without crossing into complete fiction. A woman's face, slightly blurred but recognizable if you knew what you were looking for. Marcus Webb, private investigator for the past 23 years, 2 marriages, 1 daughter in college, studied the image without touching it. He had learned long ago that the way a client presented information told you as much as the information itself. This about a legal matter? No. Ethan's voice was firm, too firm, the tone of someone who had rehearsed this conversation. Stalking situation, harassment, someone bothering you? God, no. Nothing like that? Ethan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture his assistant Jessica would recognize as distress, as the crack in his usually perfect composure. She helped me. I want to thank her properly. That is all." Marcus raised one eyebrow, an expression he had perfected during 2 decades of watching people lie to themselves about their motivations. The eyebrow said, "I have heard this before." The eyebrow said, "This ends badly." "Helped you how?" "She paid my bus fare." The words came out defensive, slightly too loud. "I lost my wallet and she paid $2.75 so I would not get thrown off. And before I could thank her properly, she disappeared. I need to find her." The investigator's other eyebrow joined the first, both climbing toward his graying hairline. In his experience, normal people did not hire investigators to track down good Samaritans. Normal people wrote thank you notes or paid kindness forward or, at most, made a donation to charity in the helper's name. Normal people did not turn momentary kindness into a crusade. But Marcus had stopped dealing with normal people about 15 years ago. Normal people could not afford his rates. "And for this, you want me to track her down for $2.75. "Yes." Ethan leaned forward, hands flat on the table, intensity radiating from him like heat. "I need to thank her. I do not know what I need, but I need to find her. Can you do it or not?" Marcus Webb had seen this before. Rich men, usually, sometimes women, fixating on some moment of authentic human connection in lives otherwise insulated by wealth and power. They built these moments into something mythical, something meaningful, because nothing else in their carefully curated existences felt real anymore. It never ended well. The fantasy never survived contact with reality. But his rent was due, and his daughter's tuition was due, and this guy was clearly loaded, judging by the Italian shoes alone, the watch that cost more than Marcus made in 6 months. The casual way he sat in a conference room that probably cost more per hour than most people made in a day. "I will need more than a blurry photo. Bus number 43, Tuesday, September 16th, 5:47 post-meridium departure from 4th and Pine. She got on at Greenwood Avenue. I think she works at the library." Ethan pushed a second folder across the table, this one thicker. "I pulled the route schedule, the stop times, passenger counts, everything that is public information." Marcus opened the folder. It was thorough, obsessively thorough. Spreadsheets and schedules and maps with highlighted routes. This was not casual curiosity. This was systematic hunting disguised as gratitude. "Listen, Mr. Parker." "Ethan." "Please." "Ethan." Marcus chose his words carefully, the way he might approach a skittish animal. "I can find her. That is not hard. With this information, I can probably have a name and address by tomorrow. But you should ask yourself why you want to. Because I have been doing this a long time, and when someone goes to this much trouble over a stranger, it is usually about something else. Usually about them, not the stranger. I just want to thank her. Nobody hires a private investigator to say thank you. Nobody goes to this much trouble for $2.75. Ethan's jaw tightened, muscle jumping beneath skin. "Can you find her or not?" Money. It always came down to money, the thing that solved everything and nothing. Marcus named his rate, watched Ethan not even blink. Did not ask for a discount, did not negotiate, did not even write it down to consider. Just, "Fine. How soon?" "I will have something for you by end of week. Tomorrow. That is going to cost extra." "Fine. Double my rate. Triple it. I want everything, where she works, where she lives, everything you can find out legally." Ethan stood, extending his hand. The meeting was over. He had already moved on, already planning his next move. They shook hands. Marcus gathered his folders and walked out into the September drizzle, already mentally composing the lecture he would give his daughter about not letting rich boys romanticize her into a fantasy. Because that was what this was. That blurry woman on the bus, she was not real to Ethan Parker. She was a symbol, A story he was telling himself about authenticity and connection, and whatever else billionaires told themselves when they realized their money could not buy them meaning. Marcus felt bad for her already, whoever she was. Felt bad for the moment when Ethan's fantasy collided with her reality, felt bad for what happened when people became symbols instead of humans, but not bad enough to turn down triple rate. "Levi, baby, we need to hurry." Amelia zipped his jacket, checked his backpack for the third time, handed him the lunch she had packed the night before with military precision, peanut butter and jelly again, carrot sticks in a reused plastic bag, an apple that had seen better days but was still edible if Levi did not look too closely at the bruise. Someday she would pack him the kind of lunch other kids had, deli meat from the good brands, real fruit instead of discount produce, cookies that came in packages instead of homemade from the cheapest ingredients she could find. Someday. "Mama, you look tired." Levi touched her face with one small hand, his dark eyes serious beyond his 8 years, eyes that saw too much, understood too much, carried too much concern for someone who should still believe in magic and happy endings. "I am fine, sweetheart. Just a long week. 4 days into it, and already exhausted. Already running on fumes and coffee, and the stubborn determination that had carried her through worse." She forced brightness into her smile, the kind of brightness she had learned to manufacture from thin air. "Come on, or you will be late." They walked the 6 blocks to Greenwood Elementary through morning air that smelled like rain and wet pavement, and autumn arriving slowly. Levi's hand in hers, his backpack bouncing against shoulders that seemed narrower every day, his legs working to keep up with her pace. She needed to feed him more, better food, more protein. The kind of nutrition that did not come from a dollar store budget and careful calculations. Miss Anderson says parents can volunteer for the science center trip. Levi's voice was careful again, that terrible neutrality that broke her heart every single time. "She says they need chaperones to help watch the kids." "When is it?" "October 15th. That is 3 weeks from tomorrow." He had counted. Of course he had counted. 3 weeks away. Amelia calculated rapidly. If she picked up an extra evening shift at the university library, if Daniel actually sent the child support he promised for once in his unreliable life, if nothing broke or needed replacing, if the universe gave her a break for just once. "I will try, baby. I cannot promise, but I will try. It is okay if you cannot." His voice was too understanding for 8 years old, too practiced at managing disappointment, at making himself small so his needs did not burden her. "I know you work a lot. I know you have to." The words pierced her, sharp beneath her ribs where she kept all the other guilt carefully stored. "I work a lot so we can take care of ourselves, so we can be safe, so we do not need anyone else." "I know, Mama." He squeezed her hand with his whole small fist. "You are the best Mama in the whole world. Miss Anderson said so. Miss Anderson said that. Well, she said all the mamas are the best. But I know you are the actual best." Amelia kissed the top of his head at the school gates, breathed in the smell of his shampoo and childhood, watched him run toward his classroom where other children spilled out of cars that cost more than Amelia made in 5 years. German sedans and luxury SUVs and casual wealth that did not count costs or calculate field trips. She did not resent them. She resented the system that made poverty exhausting, that made her son apologize for existing, that made every day a calculation between dignity and survival. Her phone buzzed. "Janet, meeting at 9. Not good news. Sorry." Amelia closed her eyes. Standing in the September morning while rain threatened overhead and her future hung in balance. Not good news meant more cuts. More cuts meant fewer hours, or worse, elimination of her position entirely. She was last hired, which meant first fired, last in, first out. The mathematics of expendability. She could not afford to lose this job. Could not. Ethan stood outside Amelia's apartment building, rain soaking through his supposedly waterproof jacket that had cost $500 and was failing spectacularly at its one job, and wondered what exactly he thought he was doing. The building was old, probably built in the 1960s before code requirements got strict, with paint peeling around the window frames like dead skin, and a front door that did not quite close properly. Someone had propped it open with a brick. Not safe, not secure. He could buy this building, fix it up, make sure doors locked properly and paint did not peel, and no. That kind of thinking was exactly the problem. That was exactly what Richard had warned him about. That was exactly why he was standing in the rain like a stalker instead of a normal human being. Marcus had provided an admirably thorough report, delivered within 18 hours, every dollar of his tripled rate earned. Amelia Harris, born November 3rd, 1991, Seattle native, divorced from Daniel Morrison after 4 years of marriage that had ended badly, judging by the court documents. Full custody of son, Levi Morrison Harris, aged 8 years, employed as assistant archivist at Seattle Public Library System since January of this year. Previous employment. At University Library, annual income approximately $38,000 before taxes. Current debt, including student loans totaling approximately $43,000. Rent at $1,100 per month. Child support sporadic at best. Credit rating fair to poor. No savings account visible. Checking account balance fluctuating between $200 and $800. Reading the report had felt obscene, like theft, like violation, like standing outside someone's window watching them undress. But Ethan had read every word, twice, building a picture of a life carefully held together by sheer determination and probably caffeine. And now he stood outside her home at 7:15 in the evening, without invitation, without right, driven by something he could not name and did not trust. He should leave, come back tomorrow, send a letter, send flowers. Send anything but himself, standing in the rain like a stalker, about to knock on the door of a woman whose financial situation he had researched like a business acquisition. But his feet carried him through the propped-open door anyway, up stairs that creaked with every step, down a hallway that smelled like old curry and new bleach, and the particular sadness of places where people tried hard but could not quite win, to apartment 3C. He could hear voices inside. A child's laughter, high and pure. Television sounds, something animated, normal life. A life he was about to intrude upon with his gratitude and his money and his complete inability to understand what normal actually meant. Ethan raised his hand to knock, then froze. What was he going to say? Hello? I hired a private investigator to track you down because you paid my bus fare. And also, I read a detailed report about your entire financial situation, including your debt and your divorce and your unreliable ex-husband. Please do not call the police. This was insane. This was exactly what Marcus had warned against. Richard would kill him. His therapist would have a field day. This was the definition of inappropriate. His hand knocked anyway. 3 solid raps that echoed down the hallway, announcing him, trapping him in his choice. Movement inside, silence. Then footsteps approaching the door, hesitant, careful. A peephole darkened. A long pause where Ethan felt himself being evaluated, measured, judged by an eye he could not see. The door opened 3 inches, chain lock engaged. A woman's face appeared in the gap, brown hair loose now instead of in a ponytail, tired eyes going wide with recognition and something else. Alarm, fear. You. Her voice carried more alarm than greeting. You are the man from the bus. Yes, my name is Ethan. Ethan Parker. The words tumbled out wrong, too formal, too rehearsed. I wanted to thank you for helping me. I have been looking for you. The alarm intensified, her face going pale. How did you find me? Honesty or lie? What was worse? The truth that made him sound like a stalker, or a lie that would eventually be discovered. I looked at the bus security footage. I saw you had a library badge. I asked around at the library system. Her face had gone completely pale now, lips pressed tight. You tracked me down to my home, to my home. I know how this sounds. Do you? Do you know how it sounds when a stranger shows up at my door? When someone I do not know finds out where I live? Behind her, a small boy appeared. Dark, curly hair and wide eyes, looking at Ethan with the protective suspicion of a child who has learned too young that the world is not safe, that strangers are not friends, that his mother needs guarding. Mama, who is that? No one, sweetheart. Go back to your homework. But now, Levi. Her voice was firm but gentle, the kind of firmness that came from love, not anger. The boy retreated, but Ethan could feel him listening from around the corner, could sense his protective presence. I did not mean to frighten you. Ethan took a step back, hands raised in what he hoped was a non-threatening gesture. I truly just wanted to thank you, and to repay you. The $2.75. I do not want to be repaid. Her voice was firm now, the alarm giving way to something harder, something that sounded like anger and fear mixed together. I helped someone who needed help. That is all. That is what people do. But I want to thank you properly. You just did. You said thank you. There. Done. Could we maybe talk, just for a minute? I could explain. Explain what? How you hired someone to find me, how you researched me, because that is what you did, is it not? Her eyes were sharp now, cutting through his carefully prepared explanations. You did not just ask around, you investigated me. The moment of truth, Ethan took a breath. Yes, I hired someone, a private investigator. I know that sounds bad. It sounds insane. She started to close the door. Please, wait. Ethan pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card. I am not some stalker or crazy person. I am just someone who wanted to thank you properly. Here, this is who I am. This is what I do. He slid the card through the gap before she could refuse it. She took it reflexively, probably from years of customer service training, glanced down, and her expression changed. Shock, then something like understanding, then something harder to read, recognition maybe, or horror. Parker Technologies. She read aloud, voice flat. Chief Executive Officer. Her eyes lifted to his face, and they were different now, guarded in a new way. You are that Ethan Parker? Yes? The billionaire. She said it like an accusation, like a disease. He had never heard the word said quite that way before, with that particular mixture of disgust and resignation. Yes, I sold my company, I have resources, which is why I want to repay you properly. $2.75 is nothing to me, but it might have been something to you. Let me make it right. Her face did something complicated. You think money makes it right? You think showing up at my home with your business card and your resources makes this better? Yes, I am trying to be generous. You are trying to make yourself feel better. Each word precise, cutting. You are trying to turn my kindness into a transaction you can close. You are trying to buy your way out of feeling grateful to someone you will never see again. That is not fair. Fair? Now there was real anger in her voice. You want to talk about fair? You hired someone to investigate me. You found out where I live. You showed up at my home unannounced, where my son can see you, where you are making me feel unsafe in my own space. And you think I am being unfair. I am just trying to help. I do not want your help. The words came out hard, final. I do not want your money. I do not want anything from you. Thank you for the thanks. Please leave and do not come back. The door started to close. Wait. He pulled out his wallet, extracted several $100 bills. At least let me. The door slammed. The deadbolt slid home with a sound like a gunshot. Ethan stood in the hallway, money still in his hand, business card in his other hand somehow, rain dripping from his jacket onto stained carpet, and realized he had just made everything infinitely worse. Inside apartment 3C, Amelia leaned against the door, heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears, while Levi watched from the couch with those two knowing eyes. "Mama, are you okay?" "I am fine, baby." But she was not fine. She was shaking. She was remembering her father's business partners, the ones who promised to help and ended up taking everything. She was remembering Daniel's romantic gestures that turned into control, into ownership, into his needs always mattering more than hers. She was remembering every time someone with power had entered her life promising help and leaving destruction. She bent down, picked up the business card he had somehow slipped through the gap before she closed the door. Ethan Parker. Parker Technologies. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, searched his name. The first result was Forbes. Tech billionaire Ethan Parker sells company for $2.3 billion. $2.3 billion. With a B. Amelia felt something cold settle in her stomach, spreading outward like ice. A billionaire had hired a private investigator to track her down to her home because she paid his bus fare. This was not gratitude. This was not kindness. This was the beginning of something she recognized all too well, the beginning of every nightmare her childhood had prepared her for. She walked to the kitchen, threw the business card in the trash beneath the sink, lifted Levi into her arms despite his protests that he was too big to be carried, and held him tight while her heart rate slowly returned to something approaching normal. "Mama, you are squishing me." "Sorry, baby." She loosened her grip but did not let go. "I love you so much. You know that, right?" "I know, Mama." His small arms wrapped around her neck. "I love you too. Was that man bad?" "No. He was just confused." She set Levi down, smoothed his hair. Sometimes grown-ups get confused about how to be nice. It does not make them bad. Just confused. But that was a lie. She knew it was a lie. Because she had seen the look in Ethan Parker's eyes when she refused his money. Not confusion, not even hurt. Something else. Determination. The look of someone who always got what they wanted and had just been told no for the first time in memory. That was dangerous. That was the look her father had before every disaster. That was the look Daniel had before the marriage fell apart. That was the look of someone who would not stop. Amelia turned on cartoons for Levi, went to her bedroom, closed the door, and finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of her fear. Outside, Ethan walked back to his car through rain that had turned heavy and cold, already pulling out his phone to call Richard, to apologize, to admit that yes, this had been a mistake. "You were right. I should have listened." But even as he drove away through Seattle rain, windshield wipers beating time to his confusion, he could not stop thinking about the fear in her eyes. He had frightened her. He, who only wanted to thank her, had made her afraid in her own home. Ethan Parker, tech genius, business prodigy, master of systems and solutions and elegant code that made impossible things possible, had somehow managed to turn a simple gesture of gratitude into a threat. And the worst part was, he genuinely had no idea how. The worst part was, he still wanted to fix it. Against every instinct screaming at her to stay away, Amelia found herself sitting across from Ethan Parker in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the library. Neutral territory, public space. Escape routes clearly visible. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me." His hands wrapped around a coffee cup he had not touched. "I know I handled everything wrong. I need you to understand, I was not trying to frighten you." "Then what were you trying to do?" Amelia kept her voice level, professional, the same tone she used with difficult library patrons. "Thank you. Properly." He looked genuinely confused by her question, as if the answer should be obvious. You helped me when you did not have to. That mattered. So you hired someone to find me? Yes. And you showed up at my home? Yes. No defensiveness now. Just acknowledgement. I see now how that was inappropriate. Inappropriate. Such a corporate word for what had felt like violation. Amelia sipped her coffee, buying time. She should not be here. Should have ignored his text asking to meet. But curiosity had won over caution, that dangerous curiosity that whispered maybe he really was just confused. Maybe his intentions were pure. Maybe she was being too harsh. The same curiosity that had gotten her mother into trouble. The same curiosity that had made her give Daniel a second chance, then a third. Tell me about your work. Ethan leaned forward slightly. The archives. What do you do there? The question surprised her. You want to know about my job? Yes. You mentioned you were an archivist. I have always been fascinated by preservation, by systems of organization. Despite herself, Amelia felt the familiar warmth that came whenever she talked about her work. I catalogue and preserve documents, historical records, city documents, personal collections people donate. Right now I am working on organizing materials from 1870 through 1900, birth certificates, marriage licenses, property deeds, the mundane records of ordinary lives. That sounds meaningful. Creating order from chaos? It is. She heard the passion entering her voice and tried to dial it back. Everything has a place. Everything can be found when you need it. Nothing gets lost. Control. His voice was soft, understanding in a way that made her uncomfortable. You like knowing where things are, knowing they are safe. Does not everyone? Not like you do. Not with that intensity. He paused. My company was about security too. Digital security. Keeping things safe from people who would take them. For the first time, Amelia saw a connection between them. Two people trying to impose order on chaos, trying to keep things safe, different methods, same fear underneath. Why did you sell it, your company? Something shifted in his expression. I thought I had won. Built something impossible. Sold it for more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but winning felt empty. He met her eyes. Until Tuesday afternoon on a bus, when a stranger reminded me what it felt like to connect with another human being. The words were too much, too intimate. Amelia set down her coffee cup with a sharp click. Mr. Parker. Ethan. Mr. Parker, I appreciate your gratitude, but I cannot be your project, your reminder of humanity. I'm just someone who paid a bus fare. You are more than that. You do not know me. I would like to. The words hung between them. I would like to know you, as a person, as, maybe, a friend. Friendship, with a billionaire who had investigated her, who knew about her debt and her divorce and her struggling existence, who probably saw her as some kind of charity case, some way to feel good about himself. I do not think that is a good idea, because I have money, because you have power. The words came out sharper than she intended, because people with power always think they are helping when really they are taking. They think their intentions matter more than their impact. Ethan sat back as if she had slapped him. That is not fair. Fair? Amelia felt anger rising, hot and familiar. You want to talk about fair? You have $2.3 billion. I have $40 in my checking account. You can track down strangers for fun. I can barely afford bus fare. Do not talk to me about fair. I was not trying to... What? Help. Because that is what people with money always say. I am just trying to help. As if help does not come with strings, as if generosity does not create obligation. She stood, grabbing her purse. Thank you for the coffee. Please do not contact me again. Amelia, wait. But she was already walking away, out into September air that felt cleaner than the coffee shop suddenly felt suffocating. Behind her, Ethan remained at the table, watching her go, understanding for the first time that his biggest obstacle was not her poverty, but her pride. And he had no idea how to navigate that. The package arrived at the library on Thursday afternoon. Amelia knew before opening it that it was from him. Who else would send something to her at work? Inside, carefully wrapped, an insulated lunch bag, the expensive kind that kept food cold for hours. A note in precise handwriting, "So you do not have to skip meals." Janet appeared at her elbow. Secret admirer? Complicated admirer? Amelia stared at the lunch bag, feeling something cold settle in her chest. He noticed, "I skip lunch." That is sweet. That is intrusive. Because how did he know she skipped lunch? Had he been watching her, following her? The thought made her skin crawl. He is watching me, Janet, paying attention to things he should not know. Maybe he just cares? Or maybe he is collecting information, learning my patterns, my weaknesses. Amelia shoved the lunch bag back into its box. My father did this. Noticed things about my mother. Her favorite flowers, her coffee order, the way she organized the kitchen. She thought it meant he paid attention. It meant he was studying her, learning how to control her. Janet's expression shifted from romantic to concerned. You want me to call security? No, not yet, but keep an eye out. If he shows up here. That evening, groceries appeared on her doorstep. The good brands, fresh vegetables that would not last the week in her budget. Chicken breasts individually wrapped. Real butter. Things she bought only when Daniel actually sent child support. The delivery person was long gone. No note this time. No need for one. Amelia carried the bags inside, set them on her kitchen counter, and felt fury building in her chest. Levi appeared from his bedroom, eyes widening at the bounty. Mama, did Grandma send food? No, baby. Someone else. Someone who had no right. Someone who thought money could fix things. Someone who was proving every fear she had ever had about people with power. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered against her better judgment. Did you get the groceries? Ethan's voice, tentative but pleased with himself. Yes. Good. I noticed you mostly buy canned vegetables, and I thought fresh would be better for... How did you notice what I buy? Her voice was ice. Pause. The investigator's report mentioned... Stop. Just stop. Amelia closed her eyes, fighting for calm. Levi was watching. You had someone investigate my grocery purchases. Not specifically. It was just part of... Part of what? Part of learning everything about me without my permission. Part of turning me into a research project. I was trying to help. I did not ask for help. Each word precise, cutting. I did not ask for lunch bags or groceries or your attention. I paid $2.75. That does not make me yours to fix. That is not what I am doing. Then what are you doing? Because from here it looks like you are trying to buy your way into my life. Like you think money solves everything. Like you think I am some kind of problem to be solved. You deserve better than what you have. His voice held conviction, certainty. You deserve not to struggle, not to choose between feeding yourself and your son. I can help with that. You can help by leaving me alone. But I could make things so much easier for you. I could pay off your student loans. I could... Stop talking. Amelia's hands were shaking now. You investigated my student loans, my debt. What else do you know? My credit score, my divorce decree, where I buy my underwear. I did not mean... I know what you meant. You meant well. Everyone always means well when they are violating boundaries. My father meant well when he promised the world and delivered disaster. My ex-husband meant well when he made decisions for me without asking. And now you mean well while researching my entire life like I am some kind of charity case. You are not a charity case. Then what am I? Because I am clearly something to you, some symbol, some story you are telling yourself about connection and gratitude, and whatever else billionaires tell themselves when they realize money does not buy meaning. The silence on the other end lasted so long, Amelia thought he had hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, harder. I will stop sending things. But Amelia, you are wrong about me, about my intentions. Then prove it. Leave me alone. She hung up. Stood in her kitchen surrounded by groceries she had not asked for, feeling violated in a way she could not quite name. This was help. Objectively, this was someone trying to make her life easier. So why did it feel like an attack? Levi tugged her sleeve. Mama, can we keep the chicken? Could they? Should they? Accepting the groceries felt like accepting his intrusion, like giving permission for more. But sending them back felt like cutting off her nose to spite her face. The chicken was real. Levi's hunger was real. Yes, baby, we can keep the chicken. That night, after Levi fell asleep, Amelia pulled out her phone and typed, "Thank you for the groceries. Please do not send anything else. I need you to respect my boundaries." The response came immediately. I understand. I am sorry. Can I ask one thing? What? Do you ever accept help from anyone, or is it just me you do not trust? Amelia stared at the question for a long time before answering. I trust people who ask before they give, who respect no as an answer, who see me as a person, not a problem. I do see you as a person, that is the whole point. But it was not the whole point. The whole point was that he saw her as a person who needed saving. And Amelia had learned the hard way that people who appointed themselves saviors were really just looking for someone to save them from their own emptiness. She did not respond, turned off her phone, went to bed and dreamed of drowning in groceries, while a faceless billionaire stood on the shore, throwing more supplies into the water, convinced he was helping. The restaurant was too expensive. Amelia knew it the moment she walked in, knew it from the crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths and servers who moved like dancers. This was not her world. This was his world. And he had pulled her into it with a simple text. Please, one dinner. Let me explain properly. Then I will leave you alone if that is what you want. She should not have come. Should have ignored the message. But something in those last words hooked her. If that is what you want. As if he was finally asking instead of assuming. Ethan stood when she approached, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her rent. Thank you for coming. I can give you 30 minutes. She sat, acutely aware of her Target dress, her discount store shoes. A server appeared with water in glasses that caught light like diamonds. That is fair. He waited until the server left before continuing. I want to apologize. Properly. Not with gifts or gestures, but with words. I handled everything wrong. I see that now. Do you see that showing up at someone's home is terrifying? That investigating their life is a violation? Yes. Simple. Direct. I see it now. I did not see it then because I was thinking only about my gratitude, my need to make things right. I did not consider your perspective. The apology was almost enough. Almost. What changed? You did. Talking to you, seeing your fear. I realized I was doing exactly what you accused me of, treating you like a problem to solve instead of a person to know. A different server appeared with menus. Amelia glanced at hers and felt her stomach drop. No prices. The kind of place where if you had to ask, you could not afford it. I cannot eat here. It is my treat. Please. That is the problem. Everything is your treat. Your gift. Your generosity, I cannot reciprocate. I cannot meet you as an equal. Something shifted in his expression. Understanding, finally. You are right. This was wrong. Let me... He signaled the server. Cancel our reservation. We are leaving. What? You are right. This place, it is about me, not us. It is about showing off, about operating in my world, instead of finding neutral ground. He stood, offered his hand. Come on! Against her better judgment, Amelia took it. They ended up at a diner 6 blocks away, the kind of place with vinyl booths and laminated menus and coffee that came in chipped mugs, equal footing, affordable prices. Amelia felt herself relax slightly. Better? Ethan asked. Better. They ordered burgers and fries, nothing fancy. For 10 minutes they ate in silence, the comfortable silence of people who did not need to fill every moment with noise. Can I ask you something? Ethan set down his burger. Why did you pay my bus fare? You needed help, but you did not know me. You did not know if I deserved help. Help is not about deserving. It is about seeing someone struggle and choosing to lighten it. She paused. My father never helped anyone unless there was something in it for him. Every favor came with strings. Every gesture had a price. I swore I would be different, that I would help when I could, expecting nothing back. That is beautiful. That is exhausting. The words came out before she could stop them, because you know what happens when you help people. They want more. They assume you have endless resources. They take and take until you have nothing left. Is that what I am doing? Taking. I do not know yet. Honest, raw. I do not know if you are genuinely grateful or if this is something else. If you see me, or just see a story you want to tell yourself. Ethan met her eyes. I see you, Amelia. I see someone who works 2 jobs to provide for her son. Someone who skips meals so he can eat. Someone who has been hurt and is terrified of being hurt again. I see someone who gave $2.75 she could not afford because kindness mattered more than money. Then why does your seeing feel like surveillance? The question hit him visibly. He sat back, processing, because I am approaching you like a system, like a problem I can solve with enough data and resources. That is what I do. That is what I know. But you are not a system. You are a person. And people do not want to be solved. No, they do not. So teach me. Teach me how to just be grateful without turning it into something else. Say thank you and walk away. That is how. But what if I do not want to walk away? What if I want to know you, not because you are a project, but because talking to you is the first time I have felt human in years? There it was again. That raw honesty that made it impossible to dismiss him completely. You do not know me well enough to feel that. Then let me know you. Why? What do you want from me? Nothing. He said it like a revelation. That is the point. You wanted nothing from me. In a world where everyone wants something, you just helped. That is rare. That is precious. I want to understand it, understand you. You cannot purchase understanding. I know. Believe me, I know that now. He smiled, sad and self-aware. I have $2.3 billion, and it has bought me exactly 0 genuine relationships. 0 people who see me instead of my bank account. 0 moments of real connection. Except one. On a bus. With you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Amelia wanted to be unmoved, wanted to maintain her walls, wanted to protect herself from whatever this was becoming. But she saw something in his face that looked like loneliness, like the same loneliness she carried, just dressed in expensive clothes. One dinner, she heard herself say it, one dinner does not make us friends. No, but maybe it is a start. Maybe. She let the possibility hang there, small and fragile as a bird. But Ethan, if you investigate me again, if you show up uninvited, if you send one more unsolicited gift, I am done. No second chances, no explanations, just done. Understood. They finished their meal. He paid. She did not argue because $37 split was $18.50 each, and she could not spare 1850. The inequality sat between them, acknowledged but not solved. Outside the diner, standing in September evening, Ethan said, "Thank you for giving me a chance. I have not given you anything yet. Just do not make me regret this." She walked away into the night, toward the bus stop, toward her small life and her precious son, and the walls she had built to keep the world at bay. Behind her, Ethan watched her go, understanding that this was the hardest thing he had ever attempted. Money could not buy her trust. Power could not earn her affection. All he had was himself, stripped of resources, standing in the rubble of his assumptions. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was, he realized, the most real thing that had happened to him in 15 years. He just hoped he did not destroy it before he learned how to protect it. Amelia woke to pounding on her door at 6 in the morning. Heart racing, she grabbed her phone, weapon, emergency call button, and approached cautiously, through the peephole. A delivery driver, young and bored, holding an enormous package. She opened the door 3 inches. Chain engaged. "Can I help you?" "Delivery for Harris. Sign here." "I did not order anything." "Someone did. You refusing it?" Against her better judgment, she signed. The box was light, almost empty feeling. She carried it inside, set it on her kitchen table, and stared at it like it might explode. Levi appeared, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "What is that?" "I do not know yet, baby. Go brush your teeth." Inside the box, an envelope, thick paper, expensive. She opened it with shaking hands. The contents made her blood run cold. Documents, legal documents, papers offering to pay off her student loans. All $43,000, already drafted, already prepared, just needing her signature. A second envelope, information about a trust fund for Levi, $500,000, invested conservatively, available for college or emergencies. A third envelope, an offer to purchase her apartment building, renovate it, reduce her rent to 0. A note in his handwriting. "I know you will be angry, but please read everything before deciding. This is not about control. This is about removing obstacles so you can breathe, so you can choose what you want instead of what you can afford. No strings, no expectations. Just help, real help. The kind that gives instead of takes. Please, let me do this." Amelia read every word, read them again, felt something inside her crack and then shatter completely. This was not help. This was erasure. This was him deciding her entire life needed fixing, and fixing it without permission. This was every nightmare her childhood had prepared her for, wrapped in good intentions and expensive paper. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, dialed his number. He answered on the first ring, voice hopeful. "Did you get? How dare you?" Her voice was quiet, deadly quiet. Levi looked up from the bathroom, alarmed. "How dare you? Amelia, please, just let me explain." "Explain what? How you think my life needs fixing? How you decided, without asking, that every problem I have can be solved with your money? How you prepared legal documents without my consent?" "I was trying to help. You were trying to buy me." Each word came out sharp, precise. "You were trying to make me so obligated to you that I would have no choice but to accept whatever you wanted next. That is not help. That is entrapment. That is not what I meant. I do not care what you meant." Her voice rose now. Levi appeared in the doorway, eyes wide with fear. "I care what you did. You investigated my life. You tracked me down. You sent unwanted gifts. And now this, $43,000 in debt payoff. A trust fund I did not ask for. Buying my building. You are struggling. I am surviving. There is a difference. I am providing for my son. I am keeping us safe. I am doing it myself, with my own work, my own money. And you want to erase all of that, replace my effort with your money, like nothing I do matters, because you can just fix everything with a checkbook. I can make your life so much easier." "Easier for who?" "For me. Or for you, so you can feel good about yourself. So you can tell yourself you are generous. So you can turn me into your project, your charity case, your good deed. Amelia, you are being unfair. Get out, she was screaming now. Levi was crying. Get out of my life. Take your money and your offers and your good intentions and get out. I do not want this. I do not want you. I want my dignity. I want my autonomy. I want to build my own life without some billionaire deciding he knows what is best for me. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, I will cancel everything. Good. But Amelia, you are wrong about me. About this. No. You are wrong about me. You think because I am poor, I must want to be saved. You think because I struggle, I must be grateful for rescue. But I do not need saving. I need respect, and you clearly cannot give me that. She hung up, threw the phone across the room, stood in her kitchen surrounded by documents that represented more money than she would see in a lifetime, and felt nothing but rage. Levi approached slowly, cautiously. Mama, I am sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you heard that. She pulled him close, felt his body shake with leftover tears. That man. He thinks he knows what is best for us, but he does not. Only we know what is best for us. Is he going to take our house? The question pierced her. No, baby. No one is taking our house. We are safe. I promise. But even as she said it, fear whispered, what if he already bought the building? What if he already has power over your life, whether you want it or not? The document stared up at her from the table, representing everything she had ever feared about people with power, about men who thought help and control were the same thing, about the world's assumption that money could fix anything. It could not fix this. It could not fix the violation she felt. It could not undo the invasion of her privacy, the assumption that her struggles were problems to be solved rather than life to be lived. Amelia gathered the documents, every single page, and fed them into her kitchen trash. $43,000 in debt relief turned into garbage, $500,000 for Levi, discarded, an apartment building renovation, rejected, because some things mattered more than money. Dignity mattered more. Autonomy mattered more. Teaching Levi that they built their own life, made their own choices, answered to no one, mattered more. Even if it meant struggling, even if it meant sacrifice, even if it meant being called unfair by a billionaire who could never understand what it meant to have nothing and still say no. She had said no. She had meant it, and she would not apologize. Outside, in his car parked 1 block away, Ethan sat with his phone in his hand, staring at the disconnected call, understanding finally what Richard had warned him about. He had destroyed it, the one real connection he had found in 15 years, destroyed by his inability to understand that some gifts were violence, that some help was harm, that sometimes the greatest kindness was walking away. But even as he understood, even as he accepted her rejection, part of him still whispered, "But I could have helped her. I could have made everything better." That whisper, he was beginning to understand, was the problem. You need to talk to someone. Janet found Amelia in the archive basement, organizing documents with a violence that suggested she was imagining something else being organized. Possibly a certain billionaire's internal organs. I am fine. You reorganized the entire 1880s collection overnight. That is not fine. That is rage filing. Despite everything, Amelia almost smiled. Rage filing is productive. It is avoidance. Janet sat on the archive table, ignoring protocol. What happened? And suddenly Amelia was telling her everything. The bus fare, the investigation, the gifts, the documents, the explosion. All of it pouring out in the dusty silence of the basement, where dead people's lives waited in careful rows. When she finished, Janet was quiet for a long moment. He meant well. I know. But that does not make it okay. No, it does not. Amelia sank into a chair. My father meant well too. Every scheme, every investment, every promise, he meant well, and we lost everything anyway. This man is not your father, but he might as well be. Same pattern, same assumption that he knows better, same belief that his intentions justify his actions. Janet studied her. What are you afraid of? What? You are terrified. I can see it. But I do not think you are afraid of him. I think you are afraid of something else. Amelia closed her eyes. I'm afraid of wanting it. The help, the ease, the freedom from constant calculation. I'm afraid that if I let him help, I will become dependent. I will lose myself. I will become my mother, waiting for a man to save her, destroyed when he could not. So you pushed him away? Yes. Even though part of you wanted to say yes. Especially because of that. Amelia opened her eyes. I cannot afford to want things I cannot have. I cannot afford to hope someone will save me. The only person who saves me is me. That is very noble. It is also very lonely. Lonely is safe. Janet stood, squeezed her shoulder. Safe is not the same as happy. You know that, right? After Janet left, Amelia sat alone in the archives, surrounded by the records of people who had lived and died and turned to dust. Their struggles were forgotten, their victories meaningless, their carefully built lives reduced to dates on paper. Someday she would be a document in someone's archive. Her struggles would be statistics, her choices would be footnotes. Would it matter that she maintained her dignity, that she said no to help she did not ask for, or would it just matter that she was alone? Her phone buzzed. Text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Meeting at community center tonight. About children's library section. You should come. Amelia stared at the message. The children's section, neglected, outdated, falling apart. She had mentioned once to Mrs. Rodriguez how much it needed renovation, how the kids deserved better. She had not done anything about it because what could she do? She had no money, no resources, no power. But maybe that was the point. Maybe power did not come from money. Maybe it came from community, from collective action, from people working together instead of one person deciding for everyone. She texted back, I will be there. That night, 15 people gathered in the community center's musty meeting room. Parents and grandparents and concerned citizens, all frustrated by the same thing. Their children's library looked like it belonged in a prison, not a learning center. Amelia stood, heart pounding. I work at the library. I know what needs fixing, but more important, I know we can fix it ourselves. No wealthy donor, no savior, just us, working together. How? Someone asked. Renovation costs money. Small amounts from many people instead of large amounts from one person. $5 here, $10 there, bake sales and yard sales and grant applications, volunteer labor instead of contractors. It will take longer, it will be harder, but it will be ours. We will own it. No one can take it away. The room was quiet. Then Mrs. Rodriguez started clapping. Others joined. And suddenly, Amelia understood something she had not understood before. She did not need Ethan Parker's money. She needed her community's love. She needed collective action instead of individual rescue. She needed to prove that change could happen without surrendering autonomy. That night, walking home under September stars, Amelia felt something shift. The anger was still there, the hurt, the violation, but underneath, something new, determination. She would fix the library, her way, their way, and maybe in doing so, she would fix something in herself too, the broken part that believed she had to do everything alone, the scared part that could not accept help from anyone, the part that had become so defended she had forgotten how to let people in, not Ethan, not yet, maybe not ever, but her community, her neighbors, her people. That was how you built a life, not with money, with connection. She just hoped it was enough. Richard found Ethan standing at his penthouse window at 2 in the morning, glass of scotch untouched in his hand, staring at city lights that offered no answers. "You look terrible." "I destroyed it." Ethan's voice was hollow. "The one real thing I found, and I destroyed it." "Good." Ethan turned, shocked. "Good. Good that you recognize it. Most people never do. They blame the other person, make excuses, convince themselves they were right." Richard poured his own drink. "You are not doing that. That is progress." "Progress toward what?" "I terrified her, Richard. I made her feel violated in her own home. I turned gratitude into violence." "Yes, you did." No softening the blow. "Now the question is, what are you going to do about it?" "She told me to leave her alone." "And are you going to?" Ethan was quiet. "I want to fix it. You cannot fix this with money. I know that now. Do you?" Richard sat across from him. "Because knowing and understanding are different. You know you cannot buy her, but do you understand why? Do you understand what you were really doing?" "I was trying to help." "No, you were trying to control. Help asks what the other person needs. Control decides for them. You decided she needed her loans paid off, her son's college funded, her rent eliminated. You decided what her life should look like. That is not help. That is colonization." The word hit Ethan like a physical blow. "That is not what I meant. Intention does not matter. Impact matters. And the impact was, you made her feel powerless in the face of your power. You turned her struggles into problems you could solve without her input. You erased her agency." Ethan sank into a chair. "I did not see it that way." "Of course not. People with power rarely do. That is how power works. It blinds you to what it means not to have it." "So what do I do? Walk away?" "If that is what she asked, yes. But I cannot stop thinking about her." Richard smiled sadly. "I know that is the problem. You are obsessed with an idea of her, the kind woman on the bus, the noble poor person, the symbol of authentic humanity. But she is not a symbol. She is a person, a complicated, damaged, proud, struggling person who does not want to be saved. Then what does she want? I have no idea, and neither do you, because you never asked. You assumed. You projected. You built a fantasy and got angry when reality did not cooperate." Ethan closed his eyes. "I thought I was being generous. Generosity without consent is just another form of taking." The words settled into Ethan like stones, heavy and permanent. He understood now, too late, what he had done. He had seen Amelia's poverty and decided it needed fixing, had seen her struggle and decided she needed rescue, had seen her independence and decided it was foolish pride instead of hard-won strength. He had, in short, seen everything but her. "I owe her an apology. You owe her space. The apology can wait." "How long?" "Until you understand what you're apologizing for. Until you can say, 'I am sorry,' without following it with 'but,' or 'I meant well,' or 'let me explain.' Until you can simply say, 'I hurt you, I was wrong, I will do better.'" Richard stood. "And Ethan, until you can hear no without trying to find a way around it, you are not ready." After Richard left, Ethan stood at his window and understood something he had never understood before. His father had died because they could not afford the medical care he needed. Ethan had made billions and thought that meant he had solved the problem. If he had enough money, he could save anyone. But Amelia did not need saving. She needed respect. And respect meant accepting her no, even when it killed him to do so. Even when every instinct screamed to fix it, to make it right, to use his resources to make her life easier. Even when walking away was the hardest thing he had ever done. Ethan set down his scotch, picked up his phone, and typed a message he had never thought he would send. "You were right about everything. I am sorry. I will leave you alone." He hit send before he could change his mind. "Put the phone down. walked away, and for the first time in 15 years, Ethan Parker felt truly powerless. It was terrifying. It was humiliating. He was starting to understand the beginning of wisdom. 3 weeks passed in separate worlds, like parallel lines that had touched once and now stretched into infinity, never to meet again. Amelia threw herself into the library renovation project with a fierceness that surprised even her. Every evening after her shift at the archives, instead of going home to collapse on her threadbare couch, she organized community meetings, called local businesses begging for donations, created spreadsheets tracking every dollar with the same precision she applied to historical documents. $5 here, $10 there. A retired teacher's Social Security check contribution of $25 that made Amelia cry in the library bathroom. A hardware store owner who remembered when libraries mattered, donating paint at cost. A carpenter in his 70s offering weekend labor because, as he said, "These hands built my life. Might as well build something that outlasts me." Slowly, impossibly, the fund grew. We have almost $800. Mrs. Rodriguez counted bills at the community center, her weathered hands careful with each crumpled 1 and 5 and 10, treating them with the reverence they deserved. "That is enough for paint and brushes, enough to start. We need 3,500 for everything." Amelia studied her carefully drawn plans, sketched on graph paper during lunch breaks she still sometimes skipped. New shelves, books, carpet tiles to cover the stained concrete, proper lighting so the children can actually see what they are reading. So we keep going. Bake sales, yard sales, maybe a talent show. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled, deep lines crinkling around eyes that had seen decades of struggle and survival. "When I was young in Puerto Rico, we built our church this way, 1 brick at a time. It took 3 years. But when we finished, we owned it. No bank holding mortgage over our heads. No rich man deciding one day to take it back. Just us." The words settled into Amelia like medicine, bitter but healing. 3 years is a long time. 3 years of ownership is better than 3 minutes of obligation. Mrs. Rodriguez folded the bills carefully, tucked them into the lockbox they kept at the community center. "And you know what we learned? Building that church. The building was not the point. The building together was the point. We married and buried and baptized people in that church, yes, but the real church was the community we became while building it." That night, tucking Levi into bed in their small apartment that somehow felt less suffocating than it had months ago, Amelia felt something she had not felt since before Daniel left, since before her father died, leaving nothing but debt and disappointment. Not happiness exactly. Purpose, maybe. The sense that she was building something real, something that would last because it was built on community instead of charity, on many hands instead of one checkbook. "Mama!" Levi's sleepy voice, muffled by the stuffed elephant he still slept with despite insisting he was too old. "Yes, baby. Are we still poor?" The question pierced her like it always did. "We are not poor, sweetheart. We are careful with money. There is a difference. Marcus says his mom got a better job. Now they can go to the science center and everything. He says they are not poor anymore. I am glad for Marcus and his mom. Will we ever have a better job? Will we ever be not poor?" Amelia stroked his hair, feeling each curl spring back against her palm, remembering when he was born, and she had counted his fingers and toes, and promised him the world. "I have the job I love, baby. Archives. Preserving history. Making sure people's stories do not disappear. That matters to me more than money." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "But yes, sweetheart, someday things will be easier. I am working toward that. The library project, it is teaching me things about leadership, about organizing, about making things happen. Those skills matter. They will help us." "Okay," He yawned, showing the gap where his other front tooth had fallen out last week. I love you, Mama. You are the best Mama, even if we are careful with money. I love you too, more than all the stars in the sky and all the moons around Jupiter. That is 79 moons. His eyes were already closing. That is 79 moons. She kissed his forehead, breathed in the smell of cheap shampoo and childhood innocence. After he fell asleep, after she checked the locks twice and set out his clothes for tomorrow and reviewed the bills that still needed paying, Amelia allowed herself 5 minutes of weakness. 5 minutes to sit in the dark and wonder where Ethan Parker was, what he was doing, whether he thought about her as much as she tried not to think about him. 5 minutes to acknowledge that part of her missed the attention, the focus, the intoxicating feeling of being seen by someone who seemed to see nothing else. Then she locked that part away in the same place she kept her father's broken promises and Daniel's empty apologies, and returned to her spreadsheets and plans. Across the city, in a neighborhood so different it might as well have been a different planet, Ethan sat in a folding chair at a food bank, sorting cans with hands that had never done manual labor before his therapist suggested it. The blisters had calloused over. The ache in his back from bending had become familiar. He wore jeans from Target and a t-shirt from a charity run he had never actually run in, and no one knew who he was. No one cared. "You are quiet today." Dorothy, not his mother, a different Dorothy, 73 years old with grandchildren, she showed photos of every shift, handed him a dented can of green beans to inspect for expiration dates. "Just thinking about that girl you mentioned, the one you frightened half to death." Ethan had told her the story in bits and pieces over the past weeks, edited for privacy, but honest about his mistakes. Dorothy was the first person besides Richard who had not tried to make him feel better about it. "Yes, I keep thinking I should apologize again. Try to explain one more time." "You already apologized." "But she is probably still angry." "Good, she should be." Dorothy handed him another can, this one peach halves in heavy syrup from 1998. He set it aside for disposal. "My husband was like you. Always trying to fix things, always knowing better than me what I needed. Took him 15 years to learn I did not need fixing. I needed listening." Did he learn? Eventually, but only after I left him for 6 months. Packed up the babies and moved in with my sister in Tacoma. He showed up every Sunday, sat on her porch, did not say a word, just sat there, rain or shine, for 6 months. She smiled sadly. Then one Sunday, I sat down next to him, and we talked, really talked. For the first time in our whole marriage, he listened without planning what to say next, without thinking about how to solve my problems, just listened. What happened? We went home together, had 42 more years. Not perfect years, but real ones, because he finally understood that loving someone means respecting who they are, not who you want them to be. The words echoed in Ethan's head long after his shift ended. Walking to his car through October cold that bit through his Target jacket, sitting in the darkness with the engine running to warm up, he thought about respect and love and the difference between them. His phone showed 3 missed calls from Jessica, 2 from potential investors wanting meetings, 1 from his mother asking about Sunday dinner. He ignored them all. Instead, he searched for Greenwood Library Project, found their Facebook page, scrolled through updates. Photos of community meetings. Amelia's face in several shots, looking tired but determined, gesturing to blueprints, organizing volunteers. Someone had posted, "This woman is a force of nature. 3 weeks, and we have $800, not millions. Just $800 raised 5 and 10 at a time, and it means more than any big donation ever could." She was doing exactly what he had wanted to do for her, except she was doing it herself. Building something sustainable, creating change that would last because it was built on collective effort, not individual wealth, built on dignity, not dependence. He wanted to donate. God, how he wanted to donate. Wanted to drop $5,000 anonymously into their fund and watch the project complete overnight. Wanted to solve the problem efficiently, effectively, the way he solved every problem for 15 years. Every instinct screamed to fix it, to help, to use his resources to make her life easier. But Richard's words echoed louder. Until you can hear no, without finding a way around it, you are not ready. Ethan closed the browser, started his car, drove home to his empty penthouse where everything was clean and expensive and meaningless. Learning to do nothing was harder than building an empire had ever been. But that, he was beginning to understand, was the point. Sometimes doing nothing was the only right thing to do. The first painting day arrived on a Saturday morning in mid-October. Autumn asserting itself with cold that bit, and leaves that fell like surrender. Amelia woke at 5, too nervous to sleep, and made coffee so strong it tasted like determination. By 7, volunteers started arriving. Teenagers in groups, laughing and alive, earning community service hours for school, but staying because it felt good to build instead of destroy. Retirees with time and skill, carrying paintbrushes worn soft from decades of use. Parents with children in tow, teaching the next generation that change happens when you show up. By 8:30, 37 people crowded into the children's section, and Amelia stood at the entrance wearing old jeans that had belonged to her father once, the only thing of his she had kept, and a paint-splattered shirt, and felt tears threaten. All these people, all these hours, all this love for a space most of them did not even use anymore, pouring out like grace. "Where do you need me?" A voice behind her. Male, vaguely familiar, carefully neutral. Amelia turned. A man in his 40s, dressed in worn work clothes that looked genuinely worn, not costume department worn. Baseball cap pulled low. Something about his jaw, his posture, the way he held himself tugged at memory, but she could not place him. "Painting crew is through there. Check in with Miguel. He is coordinating." She pointed. "Professional, efficient. Thank you for coming. Happy to help." He moved past her into the section, joining the organized chaos of tarps being spread and paint cans being opened and music starting to play from someone's phone. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared at Amelia's elbow, smelling like coffee and the cinnamon rolls she had brought for volunteers. "You have done something beautiful here, Misha. We all did this together. You organized it. You gave people a way to help. That is leadership. That is power that does not need money." She paused, watching the man in the baseball cap kneel to help a child with a paintbrush. "That man who just arrived. You know who that is?" "Should I?" "Look closer later, but do not say anything. He does not want attention." Mrs. Rodriguez squeezed her arm. "Trust me on this. Some people are learning to be small. Let them learn." The day unfolded in controlled chaos that felt like music. Laughter bouncing off walls, soon to be bright with color. Children painting with more enthusiasm than skill, leaving as much paint on themselves as the walls. The elderly carpenter, whose name was George, teaching proper brush technique with the patience of someone who had taught generations. The section, dingy and depressing for so long, slowly transforming into something cheerful, something that said, "Children matter here." Amelia moved between groups like a conductor, answering questions, solving small crises. More paint needed here, water spilled there, a child needing the bathroom, a volunteer needing direction. She felt more alive than she had in months, maybe years. This was what community meant. Not one person swooping in to save everyone. Many people contributing what they could, time or money or skill, or just showing up, creating something bigger than any individual. During lunch break, sandwiches donated by a local deli that remembered when libraries were the heart of neighborhoods. Amelia found herself near the man in the baseball cap. He sat slightly apart from the others, eating a sandwich with careful concentration, listening to George tell a story about building his house in 1967. Up close, recognition hit like cold water down her spine. The jaw that she had seen in Forbes magazine photos. The voice, educated despite the work clothes, that she had heard on her phone saying, "I can make your life so much easier." The hands, now blistered and paint-stained, that had held documents offering to pay off her debt. Ethan Parker was painting her library. Her first instinct was anger, that familiar surge of violation, the same pattern repeating, him inserting himself into her life without permission, but Mrs. Rodriguez's words stopped her. He does not want attention. Some people are learning to be small. Amelia watched him for a long minute. He was not directing anyone, not taking over, not trying to impress, just working. One volunteer among many. When someone asked his name, he said Tom without hesitation. When someone asked what he did for work, he said, "Used to be in tech," and changed the subject. She should confront him. Should ask what he was doing here. Should probably ask him to leave because this was her space, or her community, her thing. Instead, she walked away. Let him work in anonymity. Let him be just another pair of hands, because that was what her community needed. Not saviors, just willing hands. And if Ethan Parker wanted to be willing hands, who was she to deny the library that helped just because of her pride? By day's end, 3 walls gleamed with fresh yellow paint, bright as sunshine, bright as hope. Tomorrow they would finish the 4th wall and start on the trim. Already the section looked transformed, loved, tended. Volunteers took photos, hugged each other, promised to return next Saturday. Children left with paint in their hair and joy on their faces. Amelia thanked each person personally, voice hoarse from gratitude and paint fumes, and the emotion of seeing something impossible become real. The man in the baseball cap, Ethan Tom, whoever he wanted to be here, packed up his brushes quietly, methodically, the way someone does who has learned a new skill and wants to do it right. As he headed for the door, Amelia made a choice. "Tom?" He turned, and she saw the recognition in his eyes, the moment he understood that she knew, saw the fear too, the bracing for rejection. "Thank you for your work today." She kept her voice neutral, professional, the same tone she used with every volunteer. "We appreciate the help." "It was my honor." His voice was equally careful, equally measured, then softer, meant only for her. "It is a good thing you are building here the right way, the hard way, the way that lasts." He left before she could respond, disappearing into October afternoon, just another volunteer heading home. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared beside her. "You knew?" "Not at first, but yes." "Are you angry?" Amelia considered the question carefully. "I do not know. He came as a volunteer. He worked. He did not try to take over or make it about him. That is different from before. People can change, Mija, if they want to badly enough, if they are willing to do the work. Or people can pretend to change until they get what they want, until you let your guard down." "True." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "But I have been watching people for 70 years. I have seen pretending, and I have seen real change. That man, he is not pretending. He is lost, trying to find his way back to human. That is real. That is hard. Pretending is easy. Change is hard." That night, lying in bed while Levi slept peacefully in the next room, while October wind rattled the windows of their cheap apartment, Amelia replayed the day. Ethan's blistered hands that matched hers, his patient teaching of proper brush technique to a teenager who kept dripping paint, the way he had faded into the background instead of seeking spotlight, becoming just another face in the crowd. It did not erase what he had done, did not undo the violation, the fear, the assumption that her life needed his fixing, did not make her forget standing in her kitchen surrounded by documents that tried to rewrite her entire existence. But it was something, maybe not enough, probably not enough. but something. And Amelia was tired of being angry all the time, tired of seeing threats everywhere, tired of the walls she had built becoming a prison instead of protection. Maybe, just maybe, it was time to crack the door open, just an inch, just enough to see if the person on the other side had actually changed. "Father Michael wants to talk to us." Amelia stared at the text from Mrs. Rodriguez, her coffee going cold in her hands. Both of us, together. She knew what both meant. Her and Ethan, the community center director, who somehow seemed to know everyone's business and most of their hearts, had gotten involved in their mess without being asked. "I do not think that is a good idea," she texted back quickly. "I do. Trust me, you do not have to forgive. You do not have to be friends. Just listen. Can you do that for me?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Then he needs to say something. You need to hear it. Not for him, for you." Which was how Amelia found herself in Father Michael's cramped office the following Tuesday evening, sitting as far from Ethan Parker as the small room allowed, which was not very far. The office smelled like coffee and old books and furniture polish, familiar smells that should have been comforting but felt suffocating with him there. Father Michael, weathered and wise at 58, a hair more grey than black, studied them both with the patience of someone who had mediated thousands of conflicts in 30 years of community service. "Thank you both for coming." "I almost did not." Amelia's voice was sharp, defensive. "I understand." "And you, Ethan, did you almost not come?" "No. I will take any chance to—" He paused, searching for words. "To try to make things right, even though I know I cannot. Even though right would require time travel. You cannot make it right." Amelia could not stop the words, sharp and hard. "You can only make it different. Right would require going back and not invading my privacy in the first place, not showing up at my home, not investigating my life like I was some kind of acquisition target." "You are correct." Ethan's voice was quiet, steady. "I cannot undo what I did. I can only try to do better going forward, if you give me the chance. And if you do not, I understand that too." Father Michael leaned back in his chair, which creaked under his weight. "I asked you both here because I have watched you separately for weeks now. Amelia, you have built something beautiful with the library project, real leadership, real community organizing. Ethan, you have shown up and worked without fanfare, without trying to take credit. Both of you are hurting. Both of you need something from the other, and neither of you knows how to ask for it." "I do not need anything from him," Amelia said, but the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. "You need to know if people can change. You need to believe redemption is possible, not because you want to forgive him specifically, but because if people cannot change, if redemption is not real, then what hope is there for any of us, for your father, whose mistakes haunt you, for your ex-husband, who you hope becomes better for your son's sake, for yourself, for the mistakes you make as a mother, as a person?" The words hit harder than Amelia expected, landing somewhere deep and tender. She said nothing because there was nothing safe to say. Father Michael turned to Ethan. "What do you need from Amelia?" "Forgiveness. Eventually. Not now. I know it is too soon. No, I have not earned it yet. But someday, I hope she can see that I have changed, that I'm trying, that the person who showed up at her door 6 weeks ago is not who I am now." "Why?" Amelia heard herself ask. "Why does my forgiveness matter so much? You have everything. You have $2.3 billion. You can buy anything, do anything, be anything. Why do you care what one struggling single mother thinks of you?" Ethan met her eyes, and she saw something there that looked like pain. "Because you are the only person who has been honest with me in 15 years. Everyone else wants something from me, or fears me, or needs me for something I can provide. You just told me the truth, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. That is precious. That is rare, that is what real connection feels like, and I did not even recognize it, because I have been isolated by wealth for so long, I forgot what genuine human interaction was. So I am what? Your truth teller, your moral compass, your redemption project. No, you are the person who reminded me I'm human, flawed and capable of harm, and in desperate need of someone who will not let me get away with my privilege. He paused. I do not want you to be anything for me. I want you to be yourself, and I want the privilege of knowing who that is, if you will let me, which you are under no obligation to do. Father Michael let the silence stretch, uncomfortable and necessary. Outside, Seattle rain began, that soft, persistent rain that was more mist than drops. Inside, 3 people sat with hard truths and harder questions. Amelia, Father Michael said finally. What do you need from Ethan? She wanted to say nothing, wanted to maintain her walls, her anger, her righteous indignation that kept her safe from hoping, from risking, from possibly being hurt again. But Father Michael's gentle insistence, Ethan's obvious pain, something about the small office with its smell of coffee and books and years of people seeking help, cracked her defenses just enough. I need to know his change is real, not performance, not strategy to get past my defenses. Real, because I have seen men perform change before. Her voice cracked slightly. My father promised he had changed after every failed investment, every broken promise. My ex-husband swore he was different after every lie about money. They said the right words, did the right things for a while, then reverted. Always reverted. I cannot survive that again. Cannot let my son see me fooled again. Understandable. Father Michael nodded slowly. Ethan, how do you prove change is real? Time, consistency, showing up when it does not benefit me, when no one is watching, when it would be easier to stop, doing the work without recognition, accepting no without trying to find ways around it. He paused, choosing words carefully. I do not know if there is a timeline for forgiveness, a checklist I can complete. But I will keep showing up, keep volunteering at the library and the food bank and anywhere else that needs hands. Keep being part of the community as just another person, not as someone special. Not because I am trying to win her back or earn her trust, but because it is the right thing to do, because I should have been doing it all along. And if she never forgives you, if you do all that work and she still says no, then I will live with that. Her no is more important than my yes. Her boundaries are more important than my needs. If all I get from this is learning to be a better human, that is enough. It has to be enough. The words settled into the room like snow, quiet and transformative. Amelia felt something shift, just slightly in her chest. Not forgiveness, not trust, but the barest possibility of both, like the first crack in winter ice. I need to think, she said finally, voice barely above a whisper. Take all the time you need. Ethan stood, careful not to move toward her. Thank you for listening. That is more than I deserve, more than I have any right to ask. After he left, Amelia remained, suddenly exhausted. Father Michael poured her tea she had not asked for, chamomile that smelled like comfort. You think I should forgive him? I think you should do whatever helps you heal. If forgiveness does that, yes. If distance does that, also yes. There is no right answer except the one that lets you sleep at night. He paused. But Amelia, holding on to anger hurts you more than it hurts him. That anger is a weight you carry. He does not feel it, you do. He hurt me first. Yes, he did. And nothing makes that okay. But ask yourself, is this anger protecting you or imprisoning you? Is it a shield or a cage? The question followed Amelia home, into her small apartment, through the bedtime routine with Levi, into her restless sleep, where she dreamed of walls that became prisons, and prisons that became safety, and safety that became loneliness. Was her anger protection or prison? And if she let it go, even a little, what would remain? The answer terrified her. Because underneath the anger was hurt, underneath the hurt was hope, and hope was the most dangerous thing of all. The second painting day dawned clear and cold, October asserting dominance. Ethan arrived 45 minutes early, not to direct or impress or take control, but to help set up tarps and organize supplies and do the grunt work no one else wanted. When Amelia arrived with Levi, the coffee she had stopped for still warm in her hand, he was in the far corner, almost invisible, preparing paint rollers with the same focus he probably once applied to coding. "Mama!" Levi tugged her hand, voice dropping to a whisper the way children do when they think adults cannot hear whispers. "Is that the man from before? The one who made you upset?" Amelia froze, her heart suddenly too loud. She had not realized Levi would remember 6 weeks later, would recognize someone he had seen for barely a minute in their apartment hallway. But children remembered fear, remembered tension, remembered when their mothers were scared. "Yes, baby, that is him." Should I be scared of him? Such a simple question, such a complicated answer. No, sweetheart, you should never be scared of him. He is not dangerous, not to you or to me. He was just confused about how to be kind, about how helping works. Is he less confused now, out of the mouths of babes? I think so. I hope so. I do not know yet. Levi studied Ethan with the serious intensity only 8-year-olds can muster. That combination of innocence and brutal honesty. Then, decision apparently made through some mysterious child logic. He marched over. "Hi, I am Levi. Do you know how to paint?" Amelia watched, heart in her throat, as Ethan knelt to Levi's level, making himself small, making himself safe. "Hi, Levi, I am learning. I am not very good yet. Maybe you can teach me." "I am only 8. I probably do not know much about painting." "Then we can learn together. Would that be okay?" Levi considered this with the gravity of a judge. "Okay. But you have to listen when I say to do something, even if you are a grown-up. Deal!" They shook hands solemnly. For the next hour, Amelia watched her son and the man who had terrified her paint baseboards together, their heads bent close, Levi's commentary constant and enthusiastic. Ethan was patient, genuinely engaged, treating Levi's questions with the same seriousness he probably gave to billion-dollar decisions. When Levi spilled paint, and he spilled paint spectacularly, a whole roller's worth across the protective tarp, Ethan cleaned it up without judgment or frustration. When Levi's arm got tired, Ethan suggested a break and helped him wash his hands with careful attention to each finger. It was the small things Amelia found herself watching, the ordinary things, the things that could not be faked or performed for any length of time without the mask slipping. The genuine delight in Ethan's eyes when Levi explained Jupiter's 79 moons for the 3rd time. The way he made space for Levi to feel capable and important instead of in the way. "You are watching them." Mrs. Rodriguez materialized beside her with that supernatural ability elderly women develop to appear exactly when needed. "I am making sure my son is okay." "Your son is more than okay. Your son is teaching that man how to be human. Children are good at that. He is good with Levi. That does not erase what he did to me. No, but it shows you who he can be when he forgets to be impressive, when he is just Tom." Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "That man loves your son already. You see it, yes. I see him being nice to a child. That is not love. That man has $2.3 billion. He could be anywhere in the world right now, on a beach, in a boardroom, doing anything. But he is here, on his knees, painting baseboards with your 8-year-old son, listening to facts about Jupiter for the 3rd time like it is the most fascinating thing he has ever heard. That is not obligation. That is not strategy. That is love, trying to figure out how to be allowed to exist. The words settled uncomfortably into Amelia's chest. She turned away, busied herself directing volunteers, checking paint supplies, doing anything but watching Ethan and Levi. But she could not stop hearing Levi's laughter, could not stop seeing the gentleness in Ethan's hands, blistered and paint-stained, as he guided her son's roller. During lunch, provided again by the deli owner who refused to accept payment, "My children use this library. This is paying back." Levi sat with Ethan and other volunteers, chattering about planets and school and everything his 8-year-old brain found interesting. Ethan listened like it was the most important meeting of his life. "Did you know," Levi said through a mouthful of sandwich, "that the Great Red Spot on Jupiter is actually a giant storm that has been going for hundreds of years?" "I did not know that." Ethan's attention never wavered. "Hundreds of years. The same storm." "Yes, Miss Anderson says it is bigger than Earth. Can you imagine a storm bigger than the whole Earth? That is incredible. You must really love space. I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. But Mama says it is very expensive to become an astronaut. You have to go to special schools and everything." Levi's voice carried that careful neutrality again, that learned awareness of financial limits. "It is expensive," Ethan agreed, "but you know what? The best astronauts start by being curious, by learning everything they can from libraries and teachers. That does not cost money. That costs attention and dedication, and you have both of those." Levi's face lit up. "Really? Really? Knowledge is the only thing that is free if you know where to look. And you are learning where to look. That is the most important part." Amelia, overhearing from where she organized supplies, felt something crack in her chest. This was not the man who had tried to buy his way into her life. This was not the man who had investigated her finances and shown up uninvited with solutions she had not requested. This was someone different, someone who understood that Levi needed validation more than promises, attention more than money, belief more than rescue. By day's end, the children's section was complete. Fresh paint in cheerful yellow, new carpet tiles in deep blue, donated by a supplier who remembered when his own children had used this library, rebuilt and reinforced shelves courtesy of George the carpenter, who refused payment beyond coffee and gratitude. It was not perfect, it was not expensive, but it was theirs, built by hands and hearts, not checkbooks and contractors. The volunteers gathered for a photo, exhausted and paint-splattered and proud. Levi insisted Ethan be in it. "Come on, Tom, you helped so much. You have to be in the picture." Ethan glanced at Amelia, seeking permission, making no assumptions. She nodded once, a tiny movement that probably meant more than either of them wanted to acknowledge. In the photo that would later be posted on the library's Facebook page, that would be printed and hung in the children's section, he stands in the back row, half hidden behind taller volunteers. Just another face in the crowd. But his eyes, if you look closely, are on Levi, and the expression on his face is unmistakable. The fierce protectiveness of someone who has found something precious and is terrified of losing it before he fully understands what it means. After everyone left, after Levi fell asleep exhausted in the car on the way home, his head lolling against the window, paint still smudged on his cheek, Amelia sat in her dark living room and admitted something she had been denying for weeks. She missed talking to Ethan, missed the way he listened, like her words contained answers to questions he desperately needed to ask. Missed the challenge of explaining her world to someone who genuinely wanted to understand, not to fix, but to see. Missing someone was not the same as trusting them, was not the same as forgiving them, was not even the same as liking them. But it was something, some small crack in the walls she had built so carefully, maybe enough to try. Just try. No promises, no expectations. Maybe enough to see if people could really change. If redemption was real. If second chances were possible, maybe. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.